What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of HR Heretics. Today we are back with our AI segment with our boy Siadhal Magos from Metaview. What's up, Siadhal? How are you, man?
I'm really good. How you doing?
I'm doing great, man. Okay, so today we're going to talk about, I think, the thing that everyone's feeling, and now we're starting to see some news stories about it. I am certainly hearing about it all the time. I know Kelli is standing on her soapbox talking about this at the dinners we've recently had. And it's called the Trough of Disillusionment. So there's a chart which basically starts off as the innovation trigger and the expectations go up, right? Then when expectations go up, then all of a sudden the reality of the products delivering on those expectations is not met. And so this is the Trough of Disillusionment where we currently are. Then it typically goes back up and you hit the plateau of productivity, which is what everybody really wants with AI, is they want to get value out of the thing. But today there is a delta between what most product providers are selling and what the end users are seeing. So Kelli, our dinner a couple weeks ago, we're in SF, and I think you had said something along the lines of what are people doing here? How are you actually doing it, right, Kelli? So I don't want to speak for you. This is kind of your deal. What were you saying at dinner?
Yeah, look, I think, we like to take a kind of a humorous bent on this as well, Siadhal, but I was kind of listen, I've known a couple of you around the table for at least 15, 16 years, and we've been masochistically doing this job, over and over. And I'm I just want to know, there's a lot of chatter. We talk about all the great tools like Metaview. There's a ton of great stuff going on out there and expectations. And a lot of people are feeling this pressure to be AI native overnight. And I just looked at these veterans and I said, tell me what's going on. Tell me how your laptop looks every day. Take me into your daily thing. Because I've got, 4 to 6 tabs up. Whether it's a platform like Metaview or Gamma or ChatGPT. And I said, what tabs do you have open? And how are you using them? And is it distracting? Is it too much? And they go, it's so much, I don't do shit.
Yeah.
They don't do anything. And
that's what blew me away too.
No, it was my hypothesis. You know what I mean? I was okay, let's just... And it's becoming very overwhelming to people because it's this interesting paradox of feeling so anxious that you have to know it all and learn and spend all day doing it, and then that taking away with executing on the day-to-day and being an operator. And ideally those things obviously go together, but I think part of this is going to take a lot of time for that to come together. And I think people have kind of hit a wall with what I think has been a very frenzy-filled, anxious sprint on getting genius around this stuff overnight.
So last data point, and Siadhal, I want your take on this. I just talked about this on the 10X podcast this past week. MIT came out with this study. 95% of Gen AI pilots are failing inside of enterprises. And then in addition to that, there's this usage problem. So people have their workflows and they like doing their current workflow. And every time they change their workflow, right, it takes more time for them, especially initially, to get running back again with something that's more productive or even as productive as before. So Siadhal, you have to sell one of these products all day long. It's one of the products I do use every day. I'm sure you're starting to feel this or hear this in your buyer set, yeah?
I know. I was maybe it's naive of me, and maybe I'm in a bubble, which I definitely am. But I try and get outside that bubble, obviously, a bunch. But I was a little bit surprised. I'm surprised by you saying it here. Obviously, when we sort of said, "Hey, we're going to talk about this topic," I was hey, I'm not coming to that discussion super well armed because I haven't been in a bunch of those discussions before. I think now hearing you folks talk about it, there's two approaches I have to it. It's what are these people that you're having dinner with doing? Because they're doing it wrong if they haven't felt any impact. Because when I literally think about how we build our business and the support tooling we use and how we generate leads via outbound and how we optimize our market, there is AI infused in all of that. And it's in some cases it's under the hood and it's just the tool has just up leveled since we started using it. But in some cases it's a very, deliberate, a different way of solving that problem that is now how we operate. And then the other part of me was when I was thinking about some of our customers, maybe our larger customers, I think is an important thing, is, yeah, maybe I can sort of understand what people are talking about, because I do think there's a little bit of a sugar rush with some AI products where you're like, oh my God, how did it do that thing? And like, there's like, you're just sort of really happy about the idea that it did something really cool. And then you sort of realize, okay, but to rely on this in my actual work, I need it to be reliable like 99.99% of the time. And so, okay, someone's come along and said, I can't use that in this situation. Instead, I have to use this other tool, which is a bolt onto our existing system. And that's actually really terrible. And I'm not realizing any benefits. So I think that's one thing that I'm seeing a lot of, where you've moved from this world of very, high agency initiative taking types who adopt individual tools and like love it and use it. And then, but now it's like the almost more mature decisions are being made, where central procurement decisions of what software to buy are being made, and sometimes those decisions, no one gets fired for buying IBM type situation, right? And maybe it's not actually the best AI tool; it's just the one that sits nicely within your existing stack. So there could be some of that at play. And I'd say the second element is, I think people are realizing, I would say almost what from the outside, I would say your journey has been, Nolan, which is you have to put work into it to actually get like enterprise grade resolution, solutions, generations, however you want to think about it. And that's work. It's like an actual skill to learn, to build the intuition around how to get real value, where to apply this technology, and also how to get value out of it, that I think most people still don't have.
I think that's so true. I was at a meetup a couple weeks ago at Playground over there in Palo Alto, and we were just literally having some real talk about this, and we were like, it's kind of the human curse of instant gratification. Like, oh, I want all this. It's like, no, this is going to take a lot of work, a lot of time, a lot of failure. I think we saw some of, remember that correction in the market when like, all the AI shares dropped and everyone, AI, it's like, no, I think it was a healthy correction, and it's still going to be huge. It's just, we're going through this early flow. And I think you're seeing some of the human traits of like, it has to be done tomorrow. It has to be all solved. And you're completely right. I think that it's going to take a lot of time, a lot of reps, and just like any huge wave, this is probably one of the hugest waves in 30 years. Plus, like,
I think in humanity, like literally in the history of human beings, like this is the biggest wave we've had. Outside of fire, it's like AI.
So profound, humanity. It's poetry. Yes, it's huge, and there's early adopters, right? And then there's people that are like anti, and then there's everyone in the middle. And I think you have also stratifications of those people in the middle, and some of them are more on the side of early adopters and experimenting, and others are not. And I think what I've seen as a ripple of some of this stuff is a lot of people are like, I'm not anti-AI. I get it. It's going to be a way of life, but I'm going to let, these people like run on the trail. And so when the trail like goes from brush to like a nice groomed walking trail, I'm in. Like, now I'm going to make it a part of my life, but not struggle through it all. That's kind of my simple view of it.
But are these people not, that you spoke to at this dinner, are they not using ChatGPT at least? Like, that's what I don't get. Like, ChatGPT is so useful. Whatever your sort of your LLM of choice, that's so useful. I don't.
No, they are.
That's the bit where I.
They are. Yeah, I'm sorry. They're using that, but like I'm talking about, more in-depth workflows and AI.
Exactly.
And really,
so one other theory I throw out there, and like, unfortunately, you've probably got me in like, where I can talk the longest and also probably lose a bunch of people on this. Like, hey, it could be this, it could be that. But one other thing I would throw out there is, I wonder if there's like an innovator's dilemma type thing going on here, where, okay, let's imagine I'm like a data scientist, I'm a data analyst, and yeah, okay, I can ask ChatGPT to run that analysis for me, but it's like not as accurate as if I had done it. And my job is data science, and therefore this is not as good, and like I don't want to use it. And so in that world, you're in this situation where this is not actually at parity with these expert humans who are doing this task, and you don't want to give the AI your data anyway because it might not understand it fully, and we don't yet maybe trust it fully to ingest that data. So there's a bunch of reasons that won't work. But if you play it through in an innovator's dilemma sort of scenario where there'll be some companies coming up now and thinking, should we hire a data scientist? And there'll be they'll be exposing themselves to using ChatGPT essentially or some other tool as their data analyst, and they're just going to delay that decision because their sort of alternative is to have no one doing this at all. Like no one's going to do this analysis, or I'm just going to ask ChatGPT to do it. And you need like years for that to flush through, and then see that actually companies have much smaller data analysis teams now because they actually tend to rely on AI for like 80% of their analysis or something like that. And that's like I wouldn't say it's a generational thing, but it takes years to flush through. It takes like companies that are startups now to become larger companies and almost have a different ontology as an organization at that point.
Yeah, Kelly, I like your term correction because I actually think we're in an expectations correction right now. And Siadhal, like, you and I talk all the time about this stuff because we're like, one of the theories Siadhal and I have is if you just show people how it works and you give them real life examples, they are much more likely to try it. And that's been very effective in conversations that I've been having. And it turns out there just actually aren't that many useful examples. Obviously, ChatGPT, everyone's using that every day. You kind of sound like a mid if you're like, oh yeah, I use ChatGPT every day at a dinner. Like no one's saying that anymore because it's so coded into the way that we already operate. But
also, no one knows what mid is. So
it's fine. They'll figure it out.
Some of us are over 40.
Yeah, I mean, some of us are close, and it's scarier by the day. But my point here is like, so I'll use this data point, which was really interesting. Is I talked to a head of recruiting operations at a very large public tech company that everyone who's listening to this knows what this company is. And that person said to me the craziest thing, which was, we have the ChatGPT Enterprise Edition, and only 60% of our employees are using it every day. And I was like, what the fuck? What? That's it? Like, I'm in this thing all day long. And so then she said that the second thing is that we get so many requests from our recruiting team on new tools to test that my verbatim, she says that my word of the quarter is no. Like, we are not doing anything else until you just do the basics.
Hey everyone, we'll be right back in a moment after a word from our sponsors. Hey everyone. So if you haven't had a chance to subscribe yet, Nolan recently teamed up with the good folks at Metaview to bring recruiters and talent leaders a truly great podcast tailored to them. Instead of fluff and buzzwords, they bring you real in-the-trenches stories from the world's best operators. Instead of the same recycled opinions on LinkedIn, you'll hear Nolan's signature contrarian thinking and debate. Instead of theory, you'll hear actionable tactics and real metrics. Check out the 10X Recruiting Podcast today to hear from leaders who've built elite talent machines at companies like Vercel, Coinbase, and Uber. Search for 10X Recruiting on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts to subscribe. Your workforce is your organization's greatest strength and often its largest single expense. But without the right tools, understanding where your workforce spend is going or how it impacts your bottom line can be a challenge. That's where Planful comes in. With Planful, HR and finance teams get the clarity they need to make smarter workforce decisions, gain real-time visibility into workforce fluctuations, forecast with confidence, and adjust talent acquisition plans collaboratively based on costs today and into the future. No more guesswork, just data-driven insights to help you plan with accuracy. And the best part, Planful is fast and easy to implement, so you can be up and running in weeks, not months, with minimal IT support. Plus, as your company grows, Planful grows with you, providing endless runway for strategic workforce planning at any scale. Ready to take your workforce planning to the next level? Join over 1,500 organizations already using Planful. Visit planful.com/heretics to learn more.
So Kelly, to kind of go back to the discussion on workflows, the thing I've been learning here is that it's actually not the most profound things. Like, because I went in with the same expectation, right? I went in with this expectation like, oh my God, AI is going to change my life and it's going to happen by the end of the week. Like by Friday, like I'm going to tell everybody like how sick my workflow is. That's not what's happening. It's every week I'm tinkering with things to basically get like 30 minutes back. And that actually is happening. Right, that is happening for me on a week in, week out basis, specifically because I'm doing executive search now using Metaview's tool. It's happening for me, and I'm just dialing it in as I go. It's not this big like excavation thing. It's like an hour or two at the front end, and then 10 to 15 minutes of tinkering per week to get essentially 30 minutes week over week back in my day. That's what's happening for me.
I just want to jump on that because I'm going to go on a little bit of a soapbox here. I think we've made this thing so unnecessarily complex in the way we talk about this. It's fucking scaring people. Like, look at the title of this. Like, what was it called? Trough of Disillusionment? What is that even? What do you talk? Hallucinations that, like, you're completely right. I think that if we just get it down to something very simple, pick something, go to Metaview and experiment with 10% of one workflow. If you don't like it, or it's breaking shit or freaking people out, you can pull back, you can go slow. Today, I uploaded 3 executive compensation benchmark reports that are like 30 pages each. Terrible. I mean, who wants to read? It spit me out 8 slides on some data, and I checked it. But again, Nolan, to your point, that saved me, 2-3 hours? So these simple things that I think we have done everyone a disservice, or at least that's my opinion, of talking like it's some huge magic show that you have to be like, it's not. It's very simple, and I've just personally tried, even for myself, just think about it and write it down in very simple terms, and it's much more palatable.
Yep. Siadhal, are you seeing this with larger enterprise customers? Like, what do you like? You have tons of users in this thing every day. Like, what's the feedback in the buying cycle?
No, definitely don't have this like customers that we speak to. I'm not going to say they're all in on AI, but I'd say that's like the overall momentum is, listen, we're pretty pilled here. AI is going to be part of how we do work, and whatever. We've heard good things about Metaview. Let's explore it, or whatever. So no, I definitely don't hear this. What I do see is heightened expectations for sure, which I think maybe is also part of that could also be part of this disillusionment. Actually, is this like insanely high expectations set, which then brought up the expectations, and now you realize actually to get that level of result, which this mini influencer is talking about they're doing, I need to sort of do all these things which I'm not prepared to do or don't understand or whatever it might be. But no, we don't see the listen, we're like pretty bearish. We're not seeing any bearishness on AI, to be honest with you, at all. I think that there's like Kelli, your point of just choose one thing. If we want to be really, really basic about the most common and clearly valuable use case that everyone has experienced, and frankly is a big part of our product as well, it is summarization. Don't make me go through all this shit. Can you go through it for me in 2 seconds and tell me the shit I need to know? And I'll tell you if that's not the right stuff, bring something else back instead. That is like basically what ChatGPT is in a nutshell. It's ingested all of the world's knowledge, and you're going to query it for the things that you think are interesting. And there's a lot of other tools out there that obviously the use case that you just described, there's summarization. So I do think I probably think that 2 years or 3 years ago versus today, if we're going to choose one thing that's like solved, it's like summarization. Surely, I hope there are not any humans out there now who are spending hours and hours and hours summarizing large amounts of data, because that is clearly something that this form of intelligence is much better at doing. And if you're not, I would say that's like a clear place where you can, you can get, I would say, hours back per week for in most any job that requires that. So often when I talk to, we have like a few different types of customers that we speak to. Sometimes we want to go and speak to leaders of the organization, not really specifically about any one product, just about how to think about AI in recruiting. And there are really 4 buckets that we explain to people, this is where you should be looking. And this is not a sales thing. This is just like my legitimate advice. One is unlocking the value of unstructured data, which is essentially maybe a fancy way of saying summarization. Get the information you want out of this like massive unstructured information. The second is scaling access to expertise. So Nolan and I have done a bunch of work where we've looked at people building custom GPTs, which I would say is an example of this. Someone that's an expert has given a bunch of knowledge to a GPT and said, you can go and now you, rest of the team, can use this as well. And now you're all experts as well because you have access to this GPT, which is an expert. So like scaling access to expertise is really good. Right now, to get access, pre-AI, to get access to expertise, I'd have to like book some time with you, Kelli, and say, I need to get some time with you to learn from you. And you don't need to do that so much anymore. There's a third, which we talk about, which is basically the ability to, it's somewhat connected to summarization really, but synthesizing multiple different modalities and sources at the same time. Like if you wanted to go and do some research on any given topic, sounds like for this compensation thing, it was just some documents. But what if you also had to watch a YouTube video and you also had to go and speak to some expert network to get the full picture? Again, you can just ask an AI to go and like seek these different sources now with agentic workflow. So synthesizing different modalities, which you as a human inherently have to do in sequence. You no longer, like an AI doesn't have to do it in sequence. It does it all at once. And then the last step, the other bucket, is just automating very frequent tasks. And I would actually say that's probably the one that's least, in a way, even least impacted. Because actually, if you're talking about very frequent mundane tasks, you don't need intelligence on tap to do that. You can write a bunch of if statements and do that. So I think it's probably the automation piece where people they thought it was going to be we were going to get this panacea by the end of the week of automation, and actually no, because we've realized actually we've already automated all the simple stuff. The stuff that hasn't been automated so far is the things that requires quite a lot of judgment. And to make judgment, you need a lot of context to sort of put that we probably haven't documented. It's like tribal knowledge for us. And that's what the AI is lacking.
Yep. Well, I want to switch topics really fast to talk about what Kelli brought up. And now I've heard 3 times in a week, which is compensation. So 2 conversations in the last 5 days have essentially been along this line with current talent leaders. One person today said, if you're ahead of total rewards and you're like focused on comp, I think like you're probably like the most at risk right now of anybody in the field. And I said, that's interesting. Like, why? He goes, it's literally just inputs and outputs, right? Like this is just numbers. And so your point around summary style, I think is such a valid one here. The other one, which was last week, this person said, yeah, actually one of the first use cases we had was comp, because the recruiting team was pinging the comp team and asking for the band. And instead of just like asking for the band every time, right? Like instead what we did is we built this thing which has all the comp bands in the company. It has the levels.fyi data. And then they're taking this is where like the end state is, the next version of this is they're taking all of the inputs that they're getting from the recruiter screen in Metaview and also putting that in. To now everybody has a holistic understanding of like, what is the comp when a recruiter asks for it? And the comp team now is just serving as a backstop, as opposed to the front of the house person. If you want to go get an offer, you have to go talk to Comp God, and Comp God will give you like, whatever the ruling is on the thing. Now it's like, let's actually use AI to figure this out. And then more AI data from Metaview if we want to go back to the comp team and say, this actually is not what we're hearing from the market. Kelli, have you seen any of this stuff yet?
Yeah, I have. I mean, basically the data is now kind of open sourced everywhere.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's no more, like, remember I was at Yahoo back in 2007.
I wasn't even born yet.
See? So mid. And we literally would have 1 to 2 day turnarounds, right? Like emailing the comp person from building A to building D on what that comp range is. And this is a big thing we talked about with like platforms like Metaview or even, LinkedIn Assist. We had that, had that dude on, Nolan. The self-service nature of all this stuff it's like now entrepreneurs, right? You can start companies in one day in your garage and have a $1 billion revenue per employee. Like it's just so easy now to get access to this. So I agree with you.
This one's real. Sal, what are you seeing?
On that though, no, obviously the comp strategy, I'm not saying an AI can come up with one and it'll be in the same boat of, well, I can take it or leave it. But the comp strategy is different, right? Deciding, hey, we've decided our comp strategy is we're going to pay this centile and this in this location, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, spit out the number. AI can do that. And like it can be very dynamic, which is a good use case. But the comp strategy is still something that right now I'd say is like completely human judgment. The final decision on what is our actual strategy is human judgment. The other thing I'd say, the sort of, obviously the AI shops are not deciding what to pay people based on any of this sort of like public data. They are doing it based on like true business strategy of how much of my business am I willing to give up to hire this talent. So maybe there'll also just be a change in almost like I guess comp is a good example of, is it the end state for comp that we bucket every human in our company into like 7 different levels and n different jobs. Probably not. Probably we're going to end up knowing humans on a far deeper level because of AI. And maybe we choose we set compensation based on like in a much more micro way. And so that maybe is more like a change of what a comp person's role will become is, hey, listen, we don't need this super fuzzy, like just 7 levels per thing and this job families or whatever. Actually, at this time for the business, this function is really important. So this is going to be actually a tier 3 role or whatever. And this person is so special that even though they're a nice, that's the way it should get. And sometimes I think like sports teams are a really good analogy for that because you have like, the thing sports team have obviously is very like lots of data about the people and how they perform. There's very few slots on a team, so you can end up putting a ton of focus into like what decision do we make about this one human. Maybe AI is going to get us to the point where we can actually be that granular about every hire, and that's going to affect comp as well. So I think that's a really good example actually of like, hey, think about what might change because we have AI, as opposed to thinking AI means that this is no longer needed.
Yeah, we've talked about that a lot. I like that angle. I think it's true. I kind of think about it like if AI is the hands right now, at least, right? They're the hands that are lifting the bricks to build the house, but you still have to have a brain that's architecting the house. And like, as AI gets better and better with the bricks, your brain has to heighten, right? As long as our brains are staying ahead of what AI is doing and there's added value, there's more value in that, then I think, that's in the right direction. It's kind of like what we say with equity and venture valuation. Like the 409A is going up, but it's fine as long as the value of the company is going up. It's just if those become inverted, then people get in trouble.
Yeah, to tie it all the way back to what I started with though, right? This is like the disillusionment is coming because we keep projecting into the future versus talking about like real use cases today. And so Siadhal, I'm with you. Like I hadn't thought about it that way. That's pretty interesting. And I'm going to spend a few cycles on that. But today, right, you can use AI to completely accelerate how you get an offer out the door if you're at a big company. Like at Google, I literally had to go sit with the comp team on Tuesday and Thursday between 3 and 5. Like that's how that worked. Like I had to go sit with Gerald for 2 hours and I had to like get in there and then be like, come on, Gerald, like, give a better offer sort of a thing. It's crazy in today's era. And I actually, what took me most by surprise was hearing it 2 or 3 times in the last week and real use cases of how it's just speeding up everyone's workflow. And so again, I just want to keep underscoring this point. And probably if you're a frequent listener of the podcast, you're going to say like, Nolan, please shut up. I've heard you say this a million times. But no longer think about taking down the whole elephant, right? Like just take it one bite at a time. See if you can shave off 5 to 10 minutes here and there. And what you tend to find is that like that momentum begins to accelerate. Because if you show that internally to your people ops team, all of a sudden someone else is going to be inspired to do something in their world. And that's how you actually get the sort of innovation inside of the org. Because I'm just like so scared of seeing my friends, like our friend at dinner, Kelli, who will remain unnamed, who was like, I'm not doing anything and I'm going to wait for other people to do it. The only thought I had when that person said that was like, dude, you are in trouble.
I don't know about that. I don't know if I agree with that.
You think wait and see? You think wait and see is a successful strategy here with your leadership team?
I don't think wait and see is a successful strategy. I think it depends on the organization. I think it depends on that leadership team.
True.
I think there is a continuum of cultures around this, and just like there is a continuum of users around this. And I do think that there are some companies that are not pushing it, and you wouldn't be in trouble. And the second thing I'd say on that, doesn't mean wait and see like forever. This could be like 2 months, and there could be like, let's take Siadhal's in front of me. So there could be like a Metaview use case that like is so fucking clear and like clean. I would argue that Siadhal also probably has a lot of early adopters that are really comfortable with this and are leaning in, or else their company is tops down being like, do this or you're behind, right? To your point, Nolan. I don't think all companies are like that yet, but I think they will get there. I just think there is probably a place in the world for people that are like, I'm going to wait 3 to 6 months and I'm going to, again, wait for this trail to be a little bit more worn so I can run down it faster and not get lost in the jungle.
Yeah. Let me just...
Surprisingly, I actually agree with Kelly. I think that...
Surprisingly.
Not because I don't agree with you usually, Kelly, but just because I think that's the slightly less... I guess the obvious thing for me to say maybe would be like everyone should be aggressively like adopting AI in every way they can. I just think the reality of like society is you have some people who are trailblazers, and sometimes they do things that don't work, and then people don't copy that thing, and then they do something that does work, and they get like some fame out of it, like maybe within the company or maybe within the world, and then everyone's like, holy shit, I'm going to do that too. And I think that is just how ideas spread, and it's on companies like ours, I guess, to make people heroes and trailblazers within their company, and then tell the rest of everyone about it. I think it's quite. I just think that's like human nature. There was no point in like fighting against it. That is human nature.
I think there is a lot more human nature in all of this than we're even talking about. And I don't just mean early adopter of this. I mean also the frenzy and the fanfare and the propaganda and making everyone feel like it needs to be done. I think there's a lot of human nature in this, and I think you're completely right, Siadhal, that it's almost like a go slow to go fast. Like, you're going to take your customer base and you're all going to prove something, and then it's going to be how the world works. I would argue, like, what if you had 400,000 customers right now? You probably wouldn't be able to go as fast as you're going. Or you'd be like, stop, let me work with a subset and then scale it out, which is essentially... He's like, well,
I think you can handle
400,000 customers. Well, just to clarify, like, what's the downside is like that what you don't want to be is someone who is against the technology, in my opinion. That's the really losing position, is like, I don't care what evidence I see, and I'm going to throw up every objection I can to why that's not going to work, and that doesn't work in this situation, therefore I can't do it. That's the losing position. They're like purposefully throwing up every objection you can. That's the, in my opinion, dumb move. I think they're like observing the market and thinking, listen, Nolan's really good at experimental stuff, I'm just going to watch what he does and then take my pick. I think that's fine. You can do that. It's a healthy portion of the population will do that and still be okay.
I think that subset is very small. Like the full on, they wouldn't be at the dinner if they were full on.
Yeah, you guys have effectively convinced me though. Like I think that's right. I think it's I think that this needs to be true then. Like if you are an AI tech company selling into recruiters or people operations, the foundational level requirement now is that you are the ones showing how this is being used in other companies and where you are missing leverage, right? It no longer as a buyer is acceptable for you to sell the future anymore and just the future.
Have you guys have talked about like this whole like forward deployed engineer or like forward deployed as like the new sort of like job de jour? That is basically connected to this problem. It's
exactly.
Like, we need our people to go into these companies and show them how to dig for this gold, because it's not actually like a natural intuition people have. So yeah, it's almost clear in how, frankly, AI companies like us are operating. The fact that we're so hands-on with customers to help them get the most out of it is almost proof in itself that this is work and it's a skill. Otherwise we wouldn't bother, basically.
Yep. 100%. Cool. Thank you guys for this conversation. Continue to hit us up with like what you guys want to see on our AI corner with Siadhal. I think the comp thing was something that was brought up in passing over the course of the last 5 to 10 days. So make sure to hit us up in the comments. Let us know what you guys want to see. We'll see you soon. Peace.
Yeah, this was great.
HR Heretics is a podcast from Turpentine, the network behind Econ 102, Moment of Zen, and Turpentine VC. Subscribe, 5 stars, share it on Apple, YouTube, Spotify, anywhere you get your podcasts, all the things.